chambers and come back when you're finished. And the recording's on, yes? Yep. Thank you, Robert. We'll go to Stuart for the Sethering and apologies, please.
Thanks very much, Chair, and morning members. For the Sethering, if you could call your name, if you could confirm your attendance, we'll call your name. So Councillor Peter Maven.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Cogley.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Canning.
Present, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor John McFadden. It's an apology from Councillor McFadden. Councillor David Richardson.
Present.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor Jane Sangster.
Here, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Todd.
Here, Stuart.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin McGregor.
Here, thanks, Stuart.
Thank you. Councillor William Lennox.
Morning, here.
Yeah. Councillor June Kyle.
Present.
And Councillor Jennifer Hogg.
Yep, I'm here, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Chair.
Right, thank you, Stuart. Thank you, members. We have introduction. We've got a guest today. We've got the head teacher from Doon Academy. We've got Martin Robertson here with us today. So welcome, Martin. And that's in respect to item 3 in the agenda, the school inspection. We've had a couple of changes to the committee membership. We've got the recent appointment of Councillors McFadden and McGregor to the committee. So welcome to Governance and Scrutiny. I hope you enjoy it. And they replace Councillor Watts and Councillor Crawford, respectively. So I'd like to extend our thanks to Councillor Watts and Councillor Crawford for their past contributions to Governance and Scrutiny. We'll go now to David Mitchell. If there's any declarations of interest, please let us know.
As always, Chair, it's a matter for members to comply with the Code of Conduct. So obviously there's a Doon Academy, if there was any connection with the school for any member, which I'm not aware of. But in terms of the rest, other than East Ayrshire Performs, where it reports across all council services, I'm not aware of any particular ones. But this is just the sweep up for any members who may know otherwise in relation to their own personal circumstance to make that declaration. But I wouldn't anticipate any, if I can put it that way.
Thank you, David. And no one declaration of interest, no one online either. Thank you very much, members. We'll go now to the item 2 on the agenda, which is the previous minutes of the meetings held on 5th of June. If I can have approval as a correct record, please.
Yes. Yep, happy to.
Sorry, mic wasn't on. Thank you, Councillor Cogley. We have a seconder, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. And any matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting? No one online? No. All right, thank you, members. We'll move on to agenda item 3, which is Doon Academy, the HME inspection report at Doon Academy. And we start with Graham again, and then I believe we'll be bringing in the head teacher, Martin Robertson. All right, Graham.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members, and good morning to Martin, who's joined us from Doon Academy this morning. Thanks also to members who joined us at the visit to Doon Academy earlier on this week. That was much appreciated. What I'd like to do is go through the report. I'm not going to highlight every aspect of the report, if that's okay, members. I'll just highlight some of the key areas. As members may be aware, the initial inspection of Doon Academy took place in December 2023. There was a follow-up inspection in February 2025, and this report provides the update in terms of inspectors' findings when they returned in February 2025 to evaluate progress that was made since the initial inspection. I'm going to jump to paragraphs 12 to 14, members, and just to highlight details of a quality improvement visit that took place in the school. This was in advance of the follow-up inspection, and this supported the school to progress a number of key improvements as detailed in paragraphs 12 to 14. Members, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that in a follow-up inspection, no quality improvement indicator evaluations are provided. So you won't see in this report things like a quality indicator, then an evaluation like good or very good. Instead, in a follow-up report, a statement of progress is provided for each improvement area, and you'll see them provided throughout the report. So no quality indicator evaluations like good or very good. Instead, what also inspectors do in this, and this is detailed in paragraph 14, what inspectors do is they provide a comment on the progress. So what they will do is they will either say that insufficient progress has been made and a further inspection has to take place, or they'll say that progress has been made, but they request a further detailed report from the local authority after a period of time. So, for example, 12 or 18 months. To determine whether HMI will disengage, or they say that all areas of improvement have fully progressed and they disengage from the school. So just to give some details in terms of what they found at Doon Academy. What they detailed was that they were able to identify that key progress had been made in a number of areas. So, for example, if you look at the table that provides that, it says that senior leaders and teachers need to make sure the needs of all young people are met in class, and there's a paragraph that details that. What inspectors found was that staff have made a positive progress in that area. They also identified that senior leaders and teachers ensured that they are offering suitable programmes of learning with a stronger focus on senior phase options. And again, they were able to identify that positive progress was made in that area. But one area I would like to explain in more detail is that what inspectors asked the school to look at in the initial inspection was for senior leaders and teachers must improve attainment for all young people. And I'd like to just explain the comment that's been made by inspectors, because inspectors have said that overall staff have made limited progress in this area for improvement. It's important to highlight that because the timing of the inspection is crucially important, because when the inspectors visited the school in February 2025, at that point in time, as you would imagine, exam results weren't available until this time of the year. So they weren't able to link to exam results. So what I'd like to highlight is also the fact that in BGE attainment, that's S1 to S3, that data is collected in June each year. Senior phase attainment, that's S4 to S6, that's published in full in September each year, with schools having access to some attainment data in August each year. Now, that's obviously crucially important because at the point of the inspection in February, neither of those data sets were available. However, in discussions with inspectors, they recognised that improvements have been made in terms of the curriculum, learning and teaching, and tracking young people's progress throughout the school session. Inspectors were confident, as were we, that this would lead to impact on attainment. And paragraph 19 provides details of the significant progress that's been made on raising young people's attainment. And you'll see that in the attainment table that provides details of S4 attainment and S5 attainment. I'd like to highlight the significantly positive impact that the current head teacher has had since taking up post as acting head teacher in March 2024, and now as permanent head teacher. He has quickly established a culture of ambition, teamwork and improvement, which will ensure that outcomes for young people continue to improve at Doon Academy. Just to highlight also the outcome of the inspection, that inspectors have requested that East Ayrshire's Education Service provides a report on the school's progress within 18 months of the publication of the letter that's in Appendix 1. So that's by February 2027, by which time we will have the exam results from now, next year's exam results, and we'll be able to report on the positive progress that the school has made. So, members, just to highlight some of the key areas that are coming through in the report, that along with the visit that members had to the school will hopefully provide reassurance that things are progressing very well at Doon Academy, and we're able to demonstrate positive impact on outcomes for young people at Doon Academy. So myself, Martin, are happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Graham. And now I think we'll go to Martin. Welcome to GNS. If you could tell us a wee bit about your own experience as a new teacher. The previous teacher's retired, you've turned up at a new school with new staff that don't know you and expected to make changes. And secondly, a wee bit about the inspection process itself and how you found that. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, councillors. Arriving in the school, the school's in a fairly low place. Staff had been working really hard. Before that, had understood their position was stronger than HMIE thought, and were pretty down in the dumps when I arrived in March. So they're really receptive and really willing to change. Absolutely welcomed new ideas, new thoughts, and a different approach, which we managed to put in place over the past year and a half. All I can say about staff have been absolutely first rate. You know, there's some excellent teachers there, some real good top professionals that simply picked up and ran with the agenda that we agreed when I arrived. The kids have been outstanding. The kids have really bought into the idea and now feel that their school is theirs. They're a key part of it. And the kids are helping drive forward that improvement. And the community have been absolutely right behind everything we've done. We've kept our community up to date and involved in the school, got our kids out into the community, got our community into the school, and that's had a real impact. And there's lots and lots of positive vibes coming from the community as well now. So it's been a story of teamwork, you know, hard work and just that dedication to take the school to where we should be. You know, and we're still on that journey. We've done really well this year, and we've set ourselves some targets this year that we managed to overtake, and we've done the same for next year. So our targets for next year are just simply to keep going, consolidate what we've done, and make it a consistent approach. One of the things that was lacking in the school previously was consistency. There was lots and lots of really good initiatives undertaken, but there was no real impact from them because they weren't applied consistently across the school in a consistent way across a period of time. So we're at that stage now that staff understand that's our approach, and we'll continue what we've been doing for the past year and a half for the next year and a half until the report's due. And at that point, we'll look at where we are and where we go next. And staff are very much aware of how we need to improve and follow through with that. So that's been a really, really positive experience for me going to Doon. It wasn't something that was on my radar as moving to another school at the time, but now I've moved there. I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic wee school, great community, kids are brilliant, staff are brilliant, so I've really enjoyed being there, and I've no doubt I'll be there until I decide my time is up in teaching. That's my plan for the next wee while anyway. So in terms of the inspection itself, it was a very positive experience. Before the inspectors come, we'd set out a kind of scoping paper that said, here's where we were, and here's where we are now, and here's how we got here. And we read through it ourselves, and Graham and his team we'd talked through a lot of time, the improvements with them, and it looked and felt as if we were in a much stronger place than we had been at the previous inspection. And inspectors came into the school, and myself and the senior leadership team presented where we thought we were to them, and what the work we still had to do, and we recognised there was still work to do, and inspectors took that on very well, and went out and came back and said, yep, everything you've told us is actually happening in the school. That's part of the process. They come into the school, we tell them what we think of the school and where we think we are, and they go out and find out from staff and pupils in our wider community, is that really what's happening in the school? And they're able to come back and report to us, yes, they found that as the positive messages that were coming through. So it was a positive week that they were in. There was lots of good news coming back from individual inspectors coming and say, well, I wait to see this, and this was really good, and there was lots of good practice they were able to bring back to me. And it's always a bit worrying as a head teacher. Yeah, I've seen it in class yesterday, but will I see it tomorrow? You know, is always the question we ask ourselves. And getting that consistency across the school is always a challenge. It is a little bit easier in a school of 250 kids and 35 staff, you know, to get that consistency, but being able to ensure it's there and in place was good for myself and my deputy heads to hear, because we've done a lot of work in quality assurance and visiting those classes. And, you know, the feedback from the inspectors, we have a meeting with the chief inspector and the rest of the team at the end of the week, and the feedback that Graham was at, we felt was really positive. We'd seen lots and lots of positive things, and I felt that the report, when it eventually came, was going to be a positive one that we could celebrate. And its actually, the timing's been really good, because it's come out at the same time as our summer exam results, which are looking very positive, as you'll see in the paper as well. So it was a kind of double celebration. We're able to get out into the community and say, look how well, you know, our young people have done in the school in terms of the inspection report and the exam results. So that's been a great couple of weeks start back. You know, there's a real positive vibe and buzz about the school. And that's been great as a result of the inspection and the results that were published recently.
Well, actually come in through you, Chair. Thank you very much. And Martin, thank you for your commentary. I think the thing that Martin's forgotten to mention has been his own leadership in that space. He's got a tremendous staff, but I think the work that he's done alongside my own quality assurance team has been nothing short of phenomenal. You'll see that evidenced in the results in paragraph 25, members, in terms of the impact of that leadership and that being a school on a really difficult journey. So I think this, alongside the new campus and clearly the desires around about SL99, really are starting to put Domellington rightly very much back on the map in terms of how that's done. But I have to commend Martin's leadership in this space and the changes that he's brought to the school.
Thank you very much, Martin and Linda. We have a queue of questions. I've Councillor Cogley beside me here. I've Councillor June Kyle. I've Jennifer Hogg online, so I'll take the three first. Councillor Cogley.
Yep, thank you very much. And just in brief, thank you very much for our visit on Tuesday. You made us all extremely welcome and it was great to see the school. And I think what came over to me in particular was how the school, yourself had interacted with the pupils, with the teachers, with parents, carers, and also with the community. So it really felt as though it was a whole community approach to getting the improvement. So well done, well done. It's good to see you today. Thank you.
Councillor June Kyle.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Martin. Thank you very much for the visit on Tuesday. It was absolutely, it opened my eyes. It's a long while since I've been at school. The subjects you're offering, the courses you're offering, it's really different. And the engineering thing's absolutely fabulous. And hopefully there's more coming for that because we need trades, we need tradesmen. What I really like to see was improvement in attendance, because I know this is a problem throughout Scotland, probably throughout the UK after COVID, and you seem to be making remarkable progress with getting kids back to school. When you talk to us, your enthusiasm shone through. It really did. I think you're obviously leading a great team. By this report, obviously a great team. You've done wonders. Seeing the plans for the new school looks, no new school, the improvements to the school look great. But one thing I'm glad to see a wee bit green about instead of that total concrete outside the school. It's the first thing that hits you when you approach the school, concrete. So it'd be nice to see a nice entrance with grass and maybe flowers and plants. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin, I don't know if you want to comment a wee bit about the work you've done getting your attendance improved. And I expect you're looking forward to the new block at the school getting done as well.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, attendance is what we focused on was, I suppose, a two-pronged approach. And the first one was pulling kids into school, getting kids to want to come to school. And there was a bit about a change in ethos. We changed our uniform, our values, our house names, colours, and we got kids to lead on that. And that felt, hopefully, kids feel a bit more of belonging to school. You know, updated our uniforms, a bit more modern with hoodies and sportswear rather than simply blazers and ties. You know, so we moved a little bit with that. And that pull to school was also about our curriculum. The offer that Councillor Kyle mentioned there in terms of engineering, sport and leisure, and care in early years where the employment is. You know, and kids are really buying into those programmes that we've got going. You know, so and learning and teaching itself, actually getting our teachers better at what they do in classroom to engage everyone, adapt our learning, and make sure we're meeting the needs of everyone in the class. You know, so that pull was there to try and get kids into school a bit more often. And we've also, we're asking parents to push kids to school a bit more. You know, we're getting after parents and saying, listen, there's loads going on at the school. We'll look after your kids. We'll make sure they're safe. We'll make sure their well-being's looked after, as well as their attainment and achievement. You know, and we're getting parents and community on side to say, well, actually, yeah, I want to go to that school because they're going to do well there. You know, and there's lots of structures we've put in place in terms of simply tracking the attendance a bit better. and we've got a stage intervention system in place where a young person's attendance hits a marker, they have a one-to-one meeting with their guidance teacher, hits another marker, they have a one-to-one, parents come in at that point, and another marker will bring in partners in the school to support, and the final marker is a higher level meeting where we bring in external community partners to support attendance. So we've got systems in place, and we've got a push-pull effect going on, which has taken attendance from 84% last year, which is an increase in the year before, to 88% this year. So the average attendance for young people. So we're catching up with East Ayrshire, and we're about to overtake, and next year we'll be catching up with the national figures as well. So that's our plan for that. And on the campus, we're really looking forward to being able to do something really, really exciting down here. We've got the kind of building part, and the new schools team have been great since the decision was made not to replace the campus entirely. New school team have been great in working with us, saying, right, what do you want, and what do you need, and what do you want to look like? And they've really listened. We're getting all the rooms that we think we need in both primary and secondary. We're getting a layout that's more conducive to learning in the school. And then the grounds are really important as well, Councillor Kyle, and I'm a great one for the outdoors and getting kids outside. And there's outdoor classrooms on the plans. There's lots of green space, and there's actually hopefully a bit of grass we can run PE on, rather than having to walk to the AstroTurf every lesson. Which is a good walk away from the school. So yeah, we're really excited about it, and I'm not able to share the plans more widely yet, but I'm looking forward to that once the new school team are wanting to do the costings and things before we can share them more widely. But I think the pupils will be really excited when they see it. And the next stage is to get our pupils and staff involved in refining the design, and then that will go out to the wider community and ask for their input in refining that design. So it's in a process, and hopefully it'll move quite quickly now. In fact, Simon's here. I just know Simon's team are working really hard on that to get the information out as quickly as we can. So looking forward to that.
Thank you, Martin. Councillor Hogg online, and then I'll come to Councillor Sangster.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning. First of all, I'm delighted to hear that Martin's just officially put on record that he's going to be staying at Doon Academy. That's fantastic news for the school going forward. This report is quite amazing, considering in 2022, when I became a councillor, where the school was then to where it is now is no small feat. And I think, as we see in paragraph 25 that Linda has already pointed out, that improvement is really quite remarkable and stunning, and down to the dedication and hard work of the whole team at the school, from Martin and all the way through to the buy-in to the children. It is a remarkable turnaround, and it ripples out into the community. And one of the things that you did at first, Martin, and I really commend you for, was coming to community councils throughout the Doon Valley, Dunmellington and Patna, bringing senior pupils, discussing how the school was going so that everybody got to hear, bringing the pupils to community events so that they were becoming more integrated into community, and it was all beginning to have that ripple effect. And the ambition was clear. We can see with your more expansive curriculum where you're heading with the school, and to see the buy-in from the pupils, the teachers, the community is nothing short of, as I said, quite outstanding. So absolutely 100% congratulations on this report. And I, for one, can't thank you enough for your leadership in Doon Academy, and look forward to continuing working with you and seeing how we progress. Thanks, Martin, and thanks to all the staff and pupils.
High praise indeed. Thank you very much, Councillor Hogg. We'll go to Councillor Sangster and then Councillor Lennox online.
Thank you, Chair. No, I echo Councillor Hogg's sentiments there. Reading this report, it is actually remarkable what you've achieved in a relatively short space of time. I'm sure our head of schools is relieved that her faith in you has obviously paid off. I think, people, whether they be, staff or pupils, inherently don't like change. The fact that your staff and the pupils at this school have embraced that change that you've introduced, I think, is such a positive thing. And I think it takes a special person to be able to do that and to make these people embrace that change and allow them to embrace that change and encourage them to embrace that change. So well done. A really, really good report, and obviously significant progress has been made since the initial inspection. Many people in this room know that one of my passions is around additional support needs. And I'm just wondering how many of your pupils at the school do have additional support needs and what support is given to them. You know, how are the staff trained? Do the pupils interact with these children? And it does sound like it's a great community school, so I'm hoping to hear some kind of positive notes on that. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor, I mean, we have 250 young people, and almost 60% of our young people have an additional support need. So it's pretty much universal. Everything we do in every classroom is aimed to meet everyone's needs. We have an SLC in the School Supported Learning Centre with 30 young people who have got mild to moderate learning difficulties, and they're fully integrated into the secondary curriculum. They have times when they need specialist support, particularly in literacy and numeracy, and they're with SLT teachers, but the majority of their curriculum, they're integrated into the school curriculum. So they have the same choices of subject in terms of pathways that all of our young people have. So the curriculum is there to support and deliver for everyone. Our attainment, you know, we have attainment levels go from N National 2. We had young people with National 2 qualification last year, and we had young people in our SLC who got Bs and Cs at Advanced Higher. So we deliver for everyone in the school, and the opportunities are there to progress through all levels in the school. Our support, one of the key improvement priorities we were asked to put in place was ensure we're meeting the needs of all in classrooms. And we've worked hard at that. We've put in our pupil support team, have worked really hard with this. Our pupil support assistants have all undertaken significant training in the past 18 months in, you know, classroom management techniques and learning and teaching, because they're there to support learning and teaching. So they've been very much a part of our learning and teaching improvement journey. We put in place a system where pupil support assistants have a PSA teacher agreement. At the start of a teaching block, they'll sit down with the teacher of the class and say, right, I'm here in the class, what do you need me to do? You know, rather than that kind of vague hang about help people, there's very specific targeted outcomes for the pupil support assistants. We have removed extraction from classes. We no longer have young people who are permanently out of a particular class to get learning support. We now have small group extraction, which happens for a small period of time, which is a very specific support mechanism. We also have more time with support for learning teachers in classes, rather than extracting young people from their classes, so the young people are fully integrated into the learning. Our ASN figures are one that we will continue to work at, because they don't attain as well, they don't attend as well. You know, so it's about one of our next things we're looking at is how do we better engage young people with additional support needs to ensure they're attaining and attending as well as those without. It's a difficult measure, because with almost 60% of the young people with ASN, there's always going to be that gap. But we are working hard at it, and as a school, that was in place before I started. The school has always been first rate at integrating young people with additional support needs, specifically from the Supported Learning Centre. The actual learning and teaching need to improve a bit to ensure that the young people not in the SLC were supported equally well in class, and we've managed to do that to a certain extent in the past year and a half, and there's a real focus on how we improve that performance and attainment and attendance in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you so much. That warms my heart to hear that, and so very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. We'll go to Councillor Lennox online, and then we'll take one more from Councillor Canning in Chambers.
Thanks, Chair. It's really just to add my thanks for hosting the visit earlier in the week. You made us feel very welcome. Thank you. It was the passion and enthusiasm from the senior staff team was very evident from the minute we walked through the doors. So well done on the excellent progress that you've made over the past year and a half or so. You're to be commended for the improvements you've made down there. Really looking forward that we got to review some of the plans for the refurbishment and the upgrades that are upcoming. So I'm looking forward to seeing those start to make some progress. I think it will make a huge difference, not only to the school but to the village as a whole. So thanks and well done.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. Councillor Canning.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Graham, for the report. Yeah, I think I said it on Tuesday, but I think what struck me immediately walking in that room was the ambition. I think it just shone, and I think that reflects, Linda and Graham, and I think the whole council, and it's great to see how ambitious you are for the school. I don't think it was a coincidence that the first word, I think, on the first slide, the values was ambition. And then the second thing, just because it is quite topical, I think mobile phones in school, it was pleasing to hear, and you're maybe bucking the trend nationally, certainly a little bit, that mobile phones just weren't really a problem in the school. So that was really pleasing to hear. Yeah, so thanks again.
Thank you, Councillor Canning. I can echo what all the elected members are saying. Thank you very much for hosting us for that visit. It was excellent. I can also thank Simon Bell with his team, a couple of architects there. I don't know if you want to come in, Simon, and tell us a wee bit about the work that you're going to be undertaking, when it starts, when you think it'll finish, and the kind of difference it'll make to the school.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was really good to visit the campus with the committee members on Tuesday, be able to kind of explain, explain about the process we'd been through to develop the plans. We were explaining that, I think as members will know, we spent an awful lot of time surveying the building, trying to get an understanding of just exactly what it was the building was telling us and what we actually had to do to it. And as you know, it's resulted in us having to demolish a significant proportion at the two-storey block. But in actual fact, that's provided an opportunity to kind of open up the campus, provide more external space, and be able to kind of build a new extension to cater for the curriculum moving forward. We've been going through that process, and as we explained on Tuesday, we now have a set of designs which we've been working hard with Martin and the team to develop. It feels like the pieces of the jigsaw are coming together, and it's been well received. Currently going through a costing exercise just to see how that stacks up against the available budget, but that's happening just now and should be available within the next couple of weeks or so. So moving forward, it's about trying to see how we can implement these improvements and changes, recognising obviously it's an operational school. So we have started to prepare phasing around about how we would do that. One of the first things we're going to look at doing is upgrading to the leisure centre, and we're hopeful that that'll be able to get started towards the end of this year, beginning of next. And then moving forward, it would be about constructing this new extension to be able to provide decant space from other areas in the school to allow those to be either taken down in the case of the two-storey block or refurbished in terms of the other. So work in progress and moving forward, but as Martin pointed out, it's all about collaboration, and we're working closely with Martin and the team, and then we'll be sort of taking that out wider to the community when we're a bit more comfortable about the financial aspect of it as well. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Simon. I think we'll wrap it up there. I don't see any more questions in the room. The recommendations on the paper are in page 12, paragraph 2. We note the publication of the inspection report for Doon Academy. Note the strengths and areas for improvement. Congratulate the young people and our staff and the head teacher, of course. Note the next steps, otherwise note the contents of the report. Elected members, we're happy with that. Thank you. And Councillor Todd online, I note your lovely comments on the chat box, and I would echo that, and thank you, Martin, for hosting us for the visit. It was an excellent visit to the school. We really enjoyed it, and the best of luck to you in the future. You've been on a journey, you've made significant progress, and you've still some distance to go. The best of luck to you. Thank you, Martin. Elected members, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, item 4, which is East Ayrshire Suicide Prevention Action Plan update, and that's with Margaret McLean and Dale for support. If you want to come in as well, Dale, we'll go to you, Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And if it's okay, I'm just going to introduce the report for members.
Okay.
Thank you very much for having us along this morning. And we were lucky enough to meet a number of our elected members just last week for the councillor conversation around suicide prevention. So I'm hoping some of this will now be a bit more familiar. So every year we provide an activity report that's a snapshot of suicide prevention activity across East Ayrshire. Of course, we can't reflect it all. But we've had the benefit of Margaret being in post now for 18 months. So hopefully you're starting to see reporting that's a bit more joined up. Margaret's going to take us through just some of the highlights in the report and also just to cover that we've strengthened some of the governance arrangements for this within East Ayrshire. There's quite a lot of information in the report, so a couple of highlights from Margaret, and then we're just really keen if anyone's got questions or points they wanted to make. We're here for that purpose. Thank you, Chair, and I'll hand you over to Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you. And thank you for having me here today. With regards to the report, which is regards to the action plan update for 2024-25, if I could just take you forward to paragraph 4, it was just to make you aware that what we're doing here in East Ayrshire is aligning to the national strategy, which is 4 outcomes. And so for everything that as we do, suicide prevention leads all aligns to that. Moving forward to paragraph 7, you can see that East Ayrshire was still working towards the Every Life Matters strategy, which was the previous national strategy. And when I came into post, I was really keen that we aligned to the new Create and Hope Together strategy. So steps were taken instantly, really just to move forward to that. Moving forward to paragraph 8, you can see from Appendix 1 that there's now a Create and Hope Together Suicide Prevention Action Plan based within East Ayrshire, and that aligns to the national strategy and the 4 national outcomes. Moving forward to paragraph 9, again, when I started post in February 2024, I was really keen that East Ayrshire was put on the map and we were aligning to the national strategy. So I created with my Pan Ayrshire colleagues a new Pan Ayrshire logo, suicide prevention logo, which you'll see in Appendix 2. So you'll probably see this logo moving about everywhere within East Ayrshire, in fact Pan Ayrshire, as we utilise this logo just to promote everything that we're doing within East Ayrshire and a Pan Ayrshire approach. Moving forward to paragraphs 10, 11 and 12, you can see that the rebranding was also ratified by the Pan Ayrshire Suicide Prevention Communications Group, and it was actively promoted through local networks. This has really helped to promote suicide prevention within East Ayrshire and Pan Ayrshire as a whole, and to be reflective of the national vision for Create and Hope Together to reduce suicides. In paragraph 11, you can see that governance and support for the action plan was strengthened by the re-establishment of the Create and Hope Together Suicide Prevention Steering Group. So this is a multidisciplinary membership which was introduced, and the group welcomes representatives from a range of sectors, including our police, justice and our emergency teams within Ayrshire. In paragraph 2 and 12, you can see that a revised terms of reference was also developed to reflect the group's renewed focus and responsibilities in Appendix 3. So this marks a significant step forward in our collective efforts to prevent suicide and promote well-being across our communities. And we really look forward to the continued engagement with all our new members as we move forward with this vital work. Moving forward to paragraph 17, generally we normally get the suicide statistics from a national platform to see what stats we've had through, but this has been put back to September the 16th. So the statistics aren't in yet for suicides within East Ayrshire, but as soon as they come in, I'll send in a briefing just to make you aware of the statistics within East Ayrshire. If I can take you forward to paragraph 27, which we've been working on with regards to suicide bereavement support groups. one thing that was noted was that although we have a fantastic service by Penumbra, which provide one-to-one support for those bereaved by suicide, a group hadn't been set up. So I was really keen to start up these Creating Hope Together suicide bereaved and peer-led support groups. They've been evaluated really, really well. It's a 7-week programme that we run from, and it takes you, it's actually been benchmarks from NHS Ayrshire and Arran's spiritual care team. The group is facilitated by myself in partnership with 2 other leads who have been assist trained in suicide prevention, alongside Penumbra, who's also there for that one-to-one support if required. So the programme has actually expanded from 2024 to 25. We initially started in Auchinleck, and then I was approached to then start another one in Dunmellington and then in Cumnock, and hopefully we'll have one starting within the Killie community within Kilmarnock. But we've had to move the starting date because there's been limited people coming and moving forward with that group. So we'll keep going, trying to bring people forward within the Killie community. If I can then take you forward to paragraph 34, and this is really just to work with our local communities and our grassroots communities and all our community groups that are doing absolutely fantastic work. Myself and the Samaritans created a Brew Monday event. Now that's really known as Blue Monday on the 4th of January. So we kind of flipped it and we brought in tea, coffee, cakes. And this was at Kilmarnock railway station for anybody that was going in the trains or coming off the trains. And this was really, really well responded. And it was a great networking for all those third sector groups that are working really quite together. And that's what brought them together. And it was a fantastic event on the 4th of January. If I can move forward again to paragraph 46. For the suicide prevention activity that's been happening in 25 and moving forward to 26. So again, we like to highlight and spotlight topics that don't really like to be spoken about. So myself and the RCA Gambling Trust had an event to spotlight how gambling harm and the link that takes to suicides. Again, this was a really positive evaluated event, and it happened up in Knockinlaw Community Gardens. So we're getting right into the midst of where poverty lies up in the north of Kilmarnock. If I can move forward into paragraph 47, I've been working really hard with the Samaritans to bring back the listeners programme in HMP Kilmarnock. And again, because of COVID, you know, the volunteers were really quite scarce within the Samaritans. So they've been working really hard, getting volunteers in and training them up so that then they can train up the prisoners within HMP Kilmarnock so that they can provide peer support to those that are just coming in to HMP Kilmarnock and for those that have been there for a long time but are needing that help and support from their peers. Moving forward to paragraph 49, just to show that partnership that myself and the East Ayrshire Leisure Trust coordinators provide bespoke training to those in East Ayrshire, and this is introduction to suicide prevention training for any community groups that are looking to be trained up just from that kind of basic grassroots support. And then we signpost them to further training if they're wanting to go on to that 2-day gold standards assist training. If you look at paragraph 50, so the initiative, what I've also done is working alongside the Samaritans to see about looking at signage at our railways. So what we've had to do is flip that to create it into a more positive sense. So at the moment I'm working with Scrutiny, who already had a community board at the railways, to then provide health and wellbeing posters. And this again initiative, I'm hoping that it will be cascaded throughout East Ayrshire, so that there's health and wellbeing posters at every railway station if anybody's got suicidal ideation from our railways. If I can then move forward to what's going to be happening in September this year. So in collaboration with my suicide prevention colleagues from South and North Ayrshire, we really wanted, and although we have great relationships with our grassroots community third sector organisations, we knew out there that was groups that we didn't know about, and we also wanted to showcase the great work that they were doing. So we've created a Ayrshire Suicide Prevention Community Champion Awards, and this will be hosted first of all in Kilmarnock and West George Street and WG 13, just to showcase all those great work that's been happening. So that we had 60 nominations for all the community groups and the volunteers, and we had our senior managers whittle it down to 5. So we've got our 5 finalists who will attend next week to find out whether they're actual winners or finalists, and they'll get their certificate and they'll award. If I can then move forward to paragraph 56 on the resources that's been created within East Ayrshire, and the first one was the Staying Well in Prison booklet. This was created in collaboration with Healthcare Services and HMP Kilmarnock, and it's designed to promote well-being, again, for the individuals in custody, for those that have been newly admitted, as well as those that are already in custody. So it offers practical guidance and emotional support, and this is really to try and reduce feelings of depression, anxiety and low self-worth until we can get the listeners programme in place. If I can then move you forward, please, just to highlight the You Are Not Alone booklet, which has been created to go into our emergency departments within Cross House and Ayr. And this is really for the families and children and young people who have attempted suicide. And it's to provide the families and children and young people with support, signposting them to support services. So I've been working alongside the early years and women and children's services to create that. And at the moment, it's just been ratified and been sent through all the networks just for further feedback. And again, if I can just take you forward and highlight to paragraph 58, which is the memorial walk, which is happening on the 12th of September. This is in partnership with the Zone in Milmellington. And again, this is just to support our families who have been bereaved by suicide, to create a memorial walk for remembrance and reflection, and provide that community connection for those that have been bereaved by suicide. And thank you. That's me.
Thank you very much, Margaret. It's a big report. It's a wide-reaching report. It's quite interesting. A number of different agencies and charities and community groups and council officers that's involved in this and the training that you do. It's a lot. It's a lot that you've got Overwatch on, and you're bringing this report to us. So thank you for that. Councillor Cogley, you got a question?
More a comment, really. Looking forward to seeing the stats when they come out on the 16th of September. So looking forward to see what actually happened during 2024. And that, there's a lot of good stuff, Margaret, in the report. So thank you very much for that. So only one thing that I'll pick up on, and that's paragraph 46, the gambling harm awareness event in May this year, earlier in May this year. And of course, there are a number of elected members who are, some of whom are part of this particular committee, and we sat on a member officer working group looking at harms related to gambling, and that was leading up to some new legislation. So I'm really pleased to see that that's something that is still being picked up and the work is still carrying on. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cogley. Any other questions? Anyone online? We had a comment on the chat box online.
Yeah.
Councillor Todd. Well done engaging with the prison, with the HMP prison and high-risk individuals. Thank you, Councillor Todd. I couldn't agree more. It's valuable work being done out there. Myself and my wife attended the National Overdose Day. That was the event that started at college, and you did a walk around the town, a very noisy walk around the town. You had a bagpiper leading them all in their pink t-shirts. It was really good, and we were there at K Park and got a good chat with all the different people that were there. And we visited the Ayrshire had their new offices up in Injunfinney Street, so we met you there at that event as well. So it's good to see all the different work that's going with all the different community groups and the support they're getting. Dale, did you want in there? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just if we're kind of closing up, just as a couple of things. So first, as Margaret's highlighted, it's Suicide Prevention Week next week. She's circulated some useful information earlier this week for people to engage. So please feel free and sign up or find out more. And just on the data, Councillor Cogley, so the data for us confirmed data comes from National Records of Scotland. They have moved the reporting date back to September, so it would be a request for this time next year if we could please report in October so that we can include the data for 2025, which is what it will be at that point, if that's okay with the committee. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Dale. And Stuart's took a note of that. We'll try and get you October next year instead of September. Right, thank you very much for presenting your report. And elected members, if we go to, and thank you, Margaret, too. Page, where are we? Page 22, the recommendations. In paragraph 2, note the publication of the Year 2 delivery plan, Creating Hope Together, Scotland's Suicide Prevention Strategy. Note progress on the action plan, which is now reported on the Pintana platform. And otherwise note the contents of the report. Thank you very much. Elected members are happy with those recommendations. Thank you very much. Thank you, Margaret and Dale. Next item on the agenda is item 5. East Ayrshire performs summary report as at 31st July. And it's a big report. It's split into different sections. So you'll see in your papers, elected members, when we're doing questions, if you can refer to the page and the paragraph, the question you're asking. The first chunk of the paper is revenue, and we're going to Joe McLaughlin, Director of Finance and Digital.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. The report before you was considered and approved by Cabinet yesterday. It's a new style, new format report. It builds on the previous report, but it also takes cognizance of the comments that colleagues have made and also elected members have made in this chamber, as well as comments from partners too. So the report before you is different. It's electronic, it's available for drill down. What you see in front of you is also available to members of the public. So that's an enhanced report. We've sought to embrace digital technology, but at the same time, we've also sought to link this report back to the Council strategic plan that you approved in 2022 and to the 4 strategies that underpin that plan: the medium-term financial strategy, the capital strategy, the workforce strategy, and the digital strategy. And so the report before you has got 4 parts to it, and it will inform you specifically as governance and scrutiny around those resources, those financial, those human, those capital and digital resources that have been deployed to deliver against the objectives that you set, the Council and the officers of the Council. So as I said, a different type of report before you, and the Q1 report is here. If we move on to revenue, then you can see a dashboard. And I know some of you have seen this before in the sort of training module that we had for this when we displayed it. Just to explain fairly. Okay. Just fairly quickly, at the top right, top left rather, you'll see boxes 1 to 4. That will become your library of electronic East Ayrshire performance reports as we go through the year. Below that, you'll see a couple of lines. One, a light blue line that says the £347 million. That's the budget that you approved as Council in February, adjusted for additional income that we received. And below that, a black line that's £355 million. And that's the indication from speaking to colleagues across Council services that that's what they're likely to spend this year. So straight away, we're highlighting that the projection is higher than the budget. And so we have a projected overspend of £8.5 million. And I'll touch on that in a moment. In the top right, you see a speedometer showing £140 million. That is the expenditure that has been incurred by the Council since April this year. So as the largest employer and probably
the largest contributor to economic growth in East Ayrshire. £140 million has flowed from the council into salaries, into bank accounts and into contractors since April this year. Below that, we have a pie chart that shows how that expenditure and that budget is made up. And you can see straight away that staff costs, and what's important, why the workforce element is in here, staff costs is the biggest expenditure the council has. And below that, we have the variances. So we look at that £8.5 million and we explode it, and we look at the bars here. In simplistic terms, anything to the right of the line is an overspend. Anything to the left of the line at the bottom right-hand corner is an underspend. You can see that third-party payments is the largest contributor to the overspend of the projected overspend of £8.5 million, together with transport, and I'll touch on them in a moment. And I'll also touch on that orange centrally held savings, because it's a very unusual legend to put in there. It relates to health and social care, and I can explain what that does when we get there. So that's the very top level of all council services. And because it's available for drill down, if I was to go to the 8.5 and click, then it immediately expands and shows where that is, where that rests. You can see within education, a projected overspend of £1.9 million and projected overspend of £7.9 million in health and social care. Surprisingly, and we welcome it greatly, in communities and economy, we've got an underspend of £381,000. This time last year, that was in excess of £1 million overspend. And again, I'll touch on that in a few moments' time. And in Chief Exec's office, we're showing £1 million underspend, and again, I'll touch on that shortly. So that's the report, interactive. You've got this council service on the left-hand side and a whole raft of data that is available to you, and that will be parked in that first box, and the second, third and fourth boxes will be filled as we go through the year. So going back to the top level again, we can see that £8.5 million, and moving across to our services now. In the education service, the largest budget in the council, £141 million. And as I said, £1.9 million of a projected overspend, looking as if they're going to end the year about £143 million. Now, spent to date, £51 million, and you can see that that's mostly in staff costs, and that's as you would expect. We had a question yesterday about the £51 million and the speedometer at the top, and why that isn't almost a 12th of the total budget. We profile our budgets in a way that staff costs are profiled to be 12ths each month, but there are other elements, for example, IT contracts with a 1st of April go live date that requires the budget of the contract to be awarded and paid for at the start of the year. So that's why you'll see a difference between, you know, a simple multiply by 12 and divide by in terms of £51 million. Within education, you can see that the largest variance is in transport, ASL transport, £2.2 million. Now, what it's showing is the projected overspend for the year is 1.9, but the largest variance in the budget is in transport. So Director of Education and Skills using other underspends within the service to bring that back to 1.9, and we'll continue that through the year. Also important to note that in terms of that that transport overspend, you will be aware, members, of the work that colleagues have done in terms of reviewing contracts and taxi contracts and for ASL transport. That is still ongoing, but we anticipate that once that is finalised, the overspend of 1.9 should reduce. If we explode into that overspend, what we can see is overspends and underspends across the various sectors. What I would like to point out to you, members, though, is this time last year, we had some real financial challenges within education around probationers' costs, HQ absence cover costs, early years costs, and ASL transport. What you're seeing today is that through that report you approved, or Cabinet approved some months ago, in terms of changing format and within early years, you're seeing now an underspend taking place in early years of just under £500,000. So you're seeing work that you have approved and expect to be undertaken really achieving results as we get through the year. So education 1.9, but a better position than this time last year, when at Q1 the budget was around £8-9 million overspent. As Governance and Scrutiny Committee, it's important that you have the information upon which to scrutinise and challenge officers and hold them to account. What I'll give you assurance of is in terms of the revenue and the workforce and the capital section, nothing's been taken out the report you had previously. In fact, things have been added in, so you have more detail today than you had previously to allow you to scrutinise and do that. Within this page here, you can get a legend in terms of the challenges within the budget and what being done to overtake them. One we just need to keep an eye on is the supply teachers' absence costs of a projection overspend of just under £200,000. That's something we had an eye on last year, and we'll just keep an eye on it this year. We've added more to the budget, so that should help this year, but a really improving position in terms of education and one to watch as we go through the year. Within Chief Exec services, where corporate support, finance, governance and people and culture rest, you'll see an underspend of around £1 million. And when we explode into that as well, you can see that it's across the piece, but in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that the majority of that is made up of employee costs or staff costs. And that's because, in line with the commitment made to Cabinet, we are, as chief officers, are redesigning our service, with the reports coming in due course. But as part of that redesign process, we hold back vacancies in order to reshape and redesign services. And in terms of supplies and services, that relates to finance and digital. It's to do with IT contracts and the income side as well. A large part of that is, again, finance and digital, with DWP income falling as benefits leave us and go on to the whole system and welfare reform approach being undertaken by DWP at a national, at a UK level. So, moving on again, you have the same legends, you have the tables that you had before, and moving on to communities and economy. This is a real success story, and I can explain the work being undertaken by colleagues, but also how we've taken the opportunity to allocate a grant that's come in from UK government. So in terms of that underspend of £381,000, we can see that for the first time in a long time, in terms of housing and communities, we have an underspend of £202,000. That's where waste sits. And so, you know, members from previous reports that service has had significant overspend in previous months and indeed in previous years. In the budget report, I made mention of an indication we'd received from UK government in respect of a potential grant from DEFRA to support extended producer responsibility. Essentially, it's the tax on packaging that those companies who use or distribute packaging are made to pay. In February, we were told that our allocation would be around £6.1 million. That was revised down the way to £5.4 million for this year. We have used £2 million of that funding to allocate to waste to support the challenges they have in terms of collection and disposal, and that's in line with the purpose of the grant. The remaining balance has been used in line with or to support the actions within the waste review that Cabinet approved some months ago. I'm also aware, members, that as part of that review, it spans, I think, if memory serves me right, I think 10 years. Next year will be year 3 of those reviews. But I came before Cabinet previously to ask for funding from the general fund balance to support the inherent overspend that would arise within the waste review in years 1 and years 2. That came to around £2.8 million. And so at this point in time, I'm giving an indication to Cabinet yesterday and to you that given that the general fund uncommitted balance is at 2% and the lowest it has been for many, many years, I'll probably take the opportunity to repay the general fund with the money that was allocated previously to waste. The part that's left over will also go to the waste review and support the repayment of the capital fund that was due next year. And instead, service can use that funding to enhance the service and to build upon the service. So it's been a useful piece of funding. All of it has been allocated to the waste service, and that's important. And at the same time, we provided it in a way that lets the colleagues within waste almost drop their shoulders for a bit in terms of trying to find funding or and instead take action to implement that waste review in line with the timeline that was set within it. So that's been a help to communities and economy. And you can see in terms of central management support, an underspend of £924,000. That's a budget that sits directly with the Deputy Chief Executive. And as we go through the years, I'm sure commitments will be set against that. But at the moment, he's holding that centrally to offset pressures that may arise throughout the year. So quite a change story and quite a different story within communities and economy. That EPR money, members, will diminish over time because it is essentially a tax, and we will not plan to use it in any sort of long-term way, but we recognise that it will reduce as those who are being taxed and those who are producing the packaging will seek to either find alternative ways or lower the scope or the size of that packaging. In line with normal practice, the detail is there, and we pick up on Ayrshire Roads Alliance, which, if we look to the previous page, and I'm sorry, forgive me, too quick at the clicking. We're seeing an overspend of £796,000 within Ayrshire Roads Alliance. That predominantly relates members to the costs associated with primary and secondary school transport. So you're seeing the Deputy Chief Exec holding money back, and it may be used for this, or it may be used to offset that. We also, at February, put more money into that budget, recognising the pressure within it. What we haven't done yet is to compensate the budget for any fallout or any transition from the ASL contract and into mainstream primary and secondary contract. And we'll look upon that at Q2, members. To draw your attention to Health and Social Care Partnership, a projected overspend of £7.9 million. Third-party payments is the biggest overspend, £3.8 million. This is where the Health and Social Care Partnership is providing externally sourced home care and also care at home, and at the same time paying for care packages in private sector care homes. So that part is quite concerning for us, and we're working with the service, and I have asked one of my senior managers to support both the group finance managers and the heads of service with the Health and Social Care Partnership to bring their budget back onto line and to do almost a line-by-line review of budget entries to try and bring things into a more positive vein. Centrally held savings, £2.3 million. This was a series of rapid reviews that was approved by the Chief Officer and the IGIB that would seek to bring budgets back into line. That, I'm afraid, has not operated at the pace that we had expected, and so at this point in time, still showing as a £2.3 million non-achievement. And if we explode out the 7.9, we can see that it isn't overspends across the piece. We're seeing children and families, for example, being underspent, out with placements overspent by £1 million, but it's in the community care side, Eric side of the house, that we're seeing the biggest challenge in the £5.3 million. And it's important to emphasise that this isn't being left like this, and indeed officers, as part of the meetings that we have explained that as they have made savings of, say, £1 million, £1.5 million, additional demand has come into the service that has almost wiped out the benefit of the saving and the change they'd made. Moving on, you have further details there and further details in the pages as well. Housing revenue account is likely to end the year £1.9 million underspent. It's shown differently because, as you know, housing revenue account is a specialised account. All the income within it remains within it. So we can see that in terms of that account, we've got an underspend of around £1.2 million in the housing revenue account and an underspend of around £500,000 in housing asset services. Both reside within the HRA, and so that underspend will be set aside and used to finance further expenditure within the HRA in the years to come. And within the Leisure Trust, a break-even position, but you can see in the bottom right-hand corner that break-even position masks unders and overspends across much of the trust. But it's heartening to see a break-even position at this point in time. And as I've said previously, that tends to go against the grain of other leisure trusts in Scotland. Information is there. And in central services, this is to pick up a very minor point for those who are very astute. In paragraph 10, we note that the overspend for the year is projected to be 10.413. But if you look at the top level service one, you'll see it's 10.513. And it's to do with this page here. So we've projected to spend an extra 900,000, £1 million on providing council tax benefit or council tax support. We get a grant each year of £9.5 million. Indications are again this year we'll spend £1 million more because the applications are greater than the funding we receive. We've got some £700,000 of a gain in terms of employers' national insurance. We anticipated and modelled that to be £12 million for year one and year two. Year two is coming in around 12.7. So again, that's helping offset the additional costs in terms of council tax reduction. And in terms of council tax benefit and council tax income yield, there's £100,000 favourable gain, and that explains the differential between the 8.513 and the 8.413. And this is almost a profit and loss of the council as at quarter one, and it shows the 8.413 being there. It's a new entry in terms of this report. It's something that we discussed with audit. Audit would like to see it. We've put it in, and it can explain in more detail how we get to the 8.413 position. And at that point, Chair, I'm happy to stop before inviting Simon up and take any questions from members.
Thank you very much, Joe. I don't know if you can see on your own laptop, Councillor Richardson dropped a question. Okay, right. I'll get Stuart to read that out. He's dropped a question in the chat box.
Okay, Chair, there's actually 4 questions, I think. Do you want me just to run through the 4, Joe, or individually? Would you prefer?
If you just go through them, just give me the force, that'd be helpful.
Okay, so the first one is the council bound to find another £7.91 million to balance the health and social care budget? Yep. Secondly, the education transport overspend. In future years, will this automatically fall now that we are only providing statutory services and have removed the non-statutory subsidised bus services? This was, I believe, costing council approximately £700,000 per annum. Question 3, sorry, or will this reduce the ARA overspend of £0.796 million? Final question, what happens if the health and social care management team cannot bring the expenditure back into line as elderly care is an ever-increasing demand?
Thank you, Stuart, and through you, Chair. So if it's okay, I'll take the ARA question first. So there's a lot going on with school transport, both in terms of the ASL side and the primary and secondary side. But in terms of the primary and secondary side, we had, as Councillor Richardson intimated, we had subsidised school transport. That report was approved by Cabinet to change that, and that change took place. What we're seeing in the primary and secondary side of the house is increased demand and also increased costs. And we've left that hanging for a bit because we need to see the impact that ASL transport may have on the ARA transport budget. And at that point, we'll then have more detail and more information about the impact and then can seek to resolve that. I think at this point in time, it's why the Deputy Chief Executive is holding back that money But at the same time, it's likely once we get more information on the trajectory for primary and secondary transport, that I'll be coming to you to say that as part of the next year's budget, we may need to look to put some additional resource into that budget line. But I have to highlight as well that the change in terms of subsidise has also favourably and helped that budget as we go forward. So that's in terms of ARA. In terms of health and social care, I just need to go back and just explain structurally how this works, and forgive me if it's going to be too technical, going to be fairly technical. Every February, the council sets an allocation and gives it to the IGB. At the same time, the health board does the same. When those two large sums of money arrive at the IGB, and remember, there is no IGB, there is no bank account. The chief officer of the IGB, who is Craig MacArthur, the only employee of the IGB is Craig MacArthur, takes those funds, and in terms of the legislation, they lose their identity. In other words, they can use the NHS funding to support the council social care services and vice versa. That's managed through a thing called the strategic plan and, importantly, the integration scheme. The IGB, Craig, then commissions services. He commissions services from the council, he commissions services from the health board, and he commissions services from the third sector. In commissioning services from the council, he does that through the health and social care partnership. He does it through Marion and does it through Eric. And at that point, ridiculous though it sounds, he then becomes the director of health and social care. Right. I can feel a training session coming on. So the IGB can neither overspend or underspend. It merely commits the funds it has. So the £7.9 million of an overspend is a council overspend, because we have provided either too much service back to the IGB, or the IGB has overcommissioned. The IGB can't overcommission, so we provided too much service back to the IGB. And it's why in the February report, the council agreed for the first time ever to formally request that the IGB, Craig, provides a formal direction back to the council that says, here is the funds that I'll provide to the council this year for commissioning services. And you can't breach those funds. Now, when we do breach them, we would then go back to the IGB, and that's what we're needing the direction. The direction isn't here yet, it's overdue. And the chief exec made a fairly robust request yesterday for that direction to be sent to the council. Because at that point, the challenge and the pressure falls on you as elected members of the council to either decide whether you want to request that actions taken across the council to take budgets of other services to give to the IGB and to the Health and Social Care Partnership, or whether you will instruct the IGB to increase the eligibility criteria and so restrict demand. So that's where we are at this point in time. A direction is being compiled, it is urgently required, and we need to then come back to council, because that then provides the mechanism. In February, I mentioned in the budget speech that the direction will allow actions to flow back to the council for council then to take decisions upon. That was the direction. We've not received it yet. When we do receive it, then we can take it forward. In terms of £7.9 million, we don't have £7.9 million. Our general fund uncommitted balance is 2%. And you go below that at your peril. So we need to find the direction, and we then need to find, through discussions with elected members, the decision that you want to make in terms of either instructing greater eligibility criteria or finding resource. I would highlight, as well as I did yesterday, that this is not unique to East Ayrshire. This is a national issue, and it's why when you hear or read things about health and social care, governments, and I used plural, both UK and Scottish, tend to focus on health, and they talk about additional funding to health. part of that challenge within health is also social care, and it's that part that doesn't seem to get the funding that it needs. So a national issue. Craig's dealing with it nationally, as is Eddie through his professional group, and as am I through my professional group, that this position just can't continue. It's not sustainable. So at this point in time, Councillor Richardson, the 7.9 is here. I've asked, as I said, a senior manager from my service to go in and to support that service robustly. As I said yesterday, robustly support that service, as they did with education last year, to provide challenge and scrutiny to the budget and to the culture within the service. So that's what's happening at the moment, and I'll be able to give more detail once we receive that direction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Joe, for those answers, and Councillor Richardson for the questions on the chat box. You can come back in if you want to add to that, Councillor Richardson. I'm going to go to Councillor Todd online and then Councillor Cogley.
Thanks very much, Convener, and thanks, Joe, for that in-depth. That's a really good system now. It's a lot easier to understand for the Luddites among us. But in terms of, you were talking earlier about pressures on our partners, and our partners provide a whole host of services that really support the council. And their overspends and their costs seem to be going through the roof. What's the main reasons for that, and why, and I'm going to give you a big head here, why can you manage, I know it's difficult, but why can you manage to get through these difficult times with good management? And what is the issue with our partners? Is it support they need? And what's the causes of their massive overspends? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I'm not as expert on partners funding than I am on local government and on the council. I would say that there's a wider piece of work being done by both the Audit Scotland, and Audit Scotland is responsible for auditing the NHS and Scottish Government, and also by the Accounts Commission that exists solely to audit and provide scrutiny to local government. Both institutions are saying that there are challenges around long-term funding for these sectors, but they're also going further and deeper by saying there are now real challenges within the wider public sector around financial sustainability. That in itself, because of the services that the public sector provides, does flow into the third sector, into partners. But in terms of community planning partners, they're all feeling the same strain. And in terms of third sector, there are other challenges there around employee costs and around national insurance costs that have caused a further challenge. You know, as part of the January report or the February report, that you sought to allocate funding so that within the council, the national insurance increase was covered. And you also know from discussions that Eddie has had and the like, that was not able to be provided to the third sector. And so within my professional group and other colleagues' professional groups, we're beginning to have real dialogue with the third sector about, if that's the envelope of cash, what can I provide with that? And it's either a lower service or a less service provision, or it's a request for additional funding. So I think there are real challenges across the whole public sector, and I think those challenges will probably be here for a bit longer. How we do it in East Ayrshire, it's through a real collegiate approach. It was last year when we were sitting with £20 million that you know, the services that were underspending were more than happy to offer up their underspends to support those services that were overspending, and that is the same place. But as a council, we've revised our financial regulations. We've revised the way we report our financial management. We have deployed finance leaders into services to support, and at the same time we keep colleagues updated with developments, and at the same time we seek to maximise every opportunity we have. So, for example, Blair in Housing and Communities in the Waste Review, a massive draw from the Capital Fund and asks of the capital fund, of the general fund rather, but at the same time we're able through careful management to allocate all of the DEFRA money to support waste, and in doing so also support the council. So it's a number of things, but it's a strong and collegiate council that is a great help to me as the CFO.
Thank you, Joe. Councillor Cogley.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Two things, Joe, and this is within communities and economy. The EPR, the Extended Producer Responsibility, I think I've got that title correct. I thought that money was ring-fenced for special projects, and that it couldn't just go into sort of the pot of what we were going to do within waste management, but that it had to be used for special projects. Perhaps you'll correct me on that one. And the underspend in communities and economy as a result of not recruiting to the targeted levels, I'm hoping that money won't be used elsewhere, and that we will perhaps relook at the recruitment and recruit during the autumn and the winter, because we desperately need additional staffing members within our communities to catch up on stuff that hasn't been done earlier this year. Thank you.
So through you, Chair, the EPR is the reporting and the information that's required back to DEFRA is complex. It's why we saw that shift from £6.1 million down to 5.4 as they refined their figures down the way. It isn't ring fenced. There are expectations and conditions of grant attached to it, and the work that we've done and the actions we've taken fully align to those conditions of grant. And so in terms of the work that the Waste Review is doing, that will be picked up by the funding the council has put in, but also in part now by the DEFRA money. But, you know, we can't rest on our laurels. The DEFRA money will go at some point, or it will become so minuscule it won't be material. But that part is there. In terms of recruitment levels, you know, I say again, this time last year, £20 million overspent. This time, a projection overspend of around £8 million. We have the same safeguards in. The Head of People and Culture has not just revised the Workforce Review Group, she has created other groups that are supporting both recruitment and retention and in careful workforce management. And we'll hear more about that in a few moments. It's important also to note that the budget that you approved in February as Council has been fully allocated to services. And so where last year there was a tightening of resource because of the inherent overspend within a service, you know, in the example of communities and economy, housing and communities rather, that isn't there. So it would be for the head of service to manage their budget in line with the budget that's been provided. All the budget has been provided. There's been nothing taken off of that budget. The staffing budget that was there last year has been rolled forward and is in this year.
Yeah, sorry, Joe, just to come back in, where I'm talking about recruitment for this year, I actually mean the seasonal recruitment within outdoor amenities, rather specifically where we haven't recruited to the targeted levels. So that is within the current year. So what I'm just hoping is that money that we haven't spent won't be used elsewhere. That I would hope that would stay within outdoor amenities. Thank you.
Thank you, and through your chair, I'll take a note and get relevant colleagues to come back.
Councillor Sangster, and then we'll go to Councillor Richardson online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions, Joe. I'm just wondering, I don't know if this has been answered yet, about this going online. When is this going online for the public to be able to see, and are we going to put out good comms around that so that we can, you know, get it out there for the public to come and view it? My other question is round about IJB and Health and Social Care Partnership, and maybe I'm being a bit simplistic. I mean, would we be better off without an IJB? Is that an option? I'm just, as I say, maybe I'm being a wee bit simplistic. I don't know. Maybe it's not as easy as that. And just around about community care, I'm assuming a lot of that's to do with carers getting into people's houses. That then prevents them getting into hospital. It also cuts down costs of nursing home. So I'm just wondering, how much the health board contribute in terms of keeping patients out of hospital and keeping them at home? Thank you.
So through your chair, this format went online when the papers were issued last Thursday. We've got comms. We'll do some comms about this as well. In terms of the IGIB, I won't comment on whether the 2014 Act should exist or not. But the way that the 2014 legislation should work is that both partners allocate a sum of money to an IGIB. The IGIB then decides how that is dispersed across, as I said, council, health board and third sector. And there is this budget to the side called the set-aside budget. And the set-aside budget sits in health and it sits in acute. So it's in beds. And as IGIBs deliver more services in the community, and as delayed discharge falls and falls and falls, then there's less requirement for the set-aside beds. And so over time, the hospital would reduce those beds. And instead of using that money for other things within the hospital, they would then allocate that to the IGIB. So over time, you would see a transitioning of services, but more importantly, a transitioning of funding. Now, East Ayrshire is a council that runs well operationally and financially. And in terms of community care, our delayed discharge stats are the lowest or among the very lowest in Scotland. So we are working towards delivering the aim of the 2014 Act. But because the hospital admissions are still rising, because there are delayed discharges in there from other places, then that set-aside budget, the panacea, the thing, the gold you were supposed to receive from this, we can't get. So that's a real challenge for the IGIBs and for the Ayrshires. The Ayrshire three IGIBs is trying to get a part of the significant set-aside budget. So that's a bit that I don't think we'll ever get, if I'm perfectly honest. I think what we need, though, and I'll take this back to Craig, is some sort of training session on, or some sort of member conversation on the distinction between IGIB and Health and Social Care Partnership. From a legal point of view, it's understandable, but some of it can seem a bit ridiculous that Craig could be two people in one. So that part is something we talk about as well. And I think that was it. Thank you.
No, thank you for that clarification. That's been really helpful. Thanks, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Joe, for the answer. Councillor Richardson online.
Thanks, Chair. I don't really expect Joe to come back in all of these points. They're more, Joe's got as good as, or even a better understanding of economics than I have, but I know that Joe as an officer can't really get political, whereas I as a councillor can. So here we go. Joe's right. The Chancellor's increase to employer national insurance contribution levels was an absolute disaster, because what that does is employers across all sectors, it obviously increases their staffing costs. So if those staffing costs go up, where they might want to have invested in new plant, new machinery, new products, new services, basically they may have had to take the decision to either cut back on all of that to pay the new national insurance hike, or indeed it might have put so much pressure on the business that the business might be teetering the point of failure, which is starting to happen. So basically what that's done is that's killed other measures as well, but the national insurance hike's a big part of it. That's killed any growth in the UK economy.
Councillor Richardson.
Because we're now seeing zero point. Yeah. No, we're now. No, this is important. This is important, Chair, because we're now seeing 0.3%
Well, you're now
growth.
I'm going to stop you there. You're you're now talking about national politics which aren't relevant to the paper
No,
that's in
but
front of us. So do you have a question?
Chair, it does become very, very pertinent, because 0.3% growth means that the Chancellor has had to delay our UK autumn budget. Which in turn,
Councillor Richardson, just to support the chair, as you've been advised, this is the stage of the meeting where members are entitled and invited to put any questions or points of clarification to the officer presenting the report. I appreciate there may always be or often be a preamble to any questions or points of clarification, but the chair has asked you if you could proceed to get to your point or question, please, Councillor Richardson,
okay,
I'll
get there very quickly, David. So what that means is, because the UK government's had to delay the autumn budget, the Scottish government will now have to delay the budget for Scotland, which means East Ayrshire Council will have to wait longer to know how much we're going to get down the line. So also, the black hole that the UK Chancellor...
Councillor Richardson, I'm really sorry to have to intervene, but once again, through the chair and in order to support the chair, can I ask you if you can direct yourself to a question or a point of clarification to the officer presenting the report? Thank you.
So the question is, Joe, you can read what I've put on the notes. Are UK government policies affecting Scottish local authority finance in a negative way?
Through your chair, I can't answer that question. That's a political statement.
Thank you, Joe. Do you have a question, Councillor Cutler?
No, let's just move on.
Anyone else get any other questions? Right, thank you, Joe, for replying to the first chunk of the report. I like the layout. I like the interactive bit, and that it's now available to the public to log into. I like the speedometer thing. Can I ask some of the, I mean, we're talking about annual budgets, but that this is the first quarter. I noticed part 8, communities and economy. It looks like they've spent half their budget already in the first quarter. Let's maybe just, can you clarify Chief Executive's Service, 10.8 million. It looks like they've spent more than half their budget already in the first quarter.
So,
and the third page, we're up at nearly half. Can you explain why we seem to be spending an awful lot at the very start of the year?
Yes. So in every East Ayrshire Reforms report I've ever presented, I have never presented actuals, because actuals cause it just causes some confusion. In the council's budget, similar to your own budget at home, it doesn't flow equally every month. There are months when your car insurance is due, there is months when your house insurance is due, or you have a Christmas splurge. And so the budget might be the same, but the way you spend upon that is different. And it's exactly the same. It's just a big household budget in here. So we have staff costs, and in the ledger, as I said yesterday, our profile keys for elected members and for officers is we take the salary for the person and it's divided by 12 in the ledger for each of the periods. But there are other things. For example, non-domestic rates flies in at July is one payment, is one bill for one payment rather required to the council services. And contracts are the other, where they schedule at different points in the year. Some are front loaded to April. And so when you look, you think, my goodness me, we've spent a whole lot. But the projection is the one you look after. The projection is the one we've always looked at. And that says, okay, taking account of all of that stuff and taking account of absences and maternity leaves and all the rest of it, where will this budget be in March 2026? And that's the bit, so it's the projection. The actuals there, the speedometer and spendometer is there just to give an indication of the spending power of this thing called East Ayrshire Council. You know, we seldom talk about that. You pump hundreds of millions of pounds into the local economy each year, and that's important. You recognise that too, and you're aware of that.
Thank you. Councillor Canning, last one in this section, and then we'll move on to the next section.
Thanks, John. Excellent report. Thanks, as usual. Can I just make a request, and I've requested this already, but that maybe we'll look at some new ways of communicating this report, because I think it's an excellent opportunity, having, you know, transformed it I mean, it's great for scrutiny, but I think it's important, increasingly important, with the cuts that are coming down the track, that we communicate to people of East Ayrshire the good governance and the good financial management that it's difficult, for them, but it would be great if they could really understand the pressures that we're under and the good governance that we have in East Ayrshire. So just a question, maybe, if there's things like distributing them to community councils, a copy to community councils, or maybe just look at some new ways of getting this out there, libraries, whatever it might be. Yep, thanks.
I think that's a really good question and a really good point. And I suppose it's it'll be interesting to see whether the views on this month's committee papers are greater than previous. But at the same time, it's electronic, it's freely available. If you've got internet, you can get this. And so it's something we'll do in the comm strategy, Councillor Canning, to try and widen the scope and the reach of it.
Yeah, I think, as I said, it's 7 clicks before you can find it on the website, but, obviously, thanks.
It's a good comment. Thank you, Councillor Canning. Councillor Lennox is online.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Joe. Really, not to lengthen the winter any, but just from my perspective, one of those councillors who are, let me put it politely, not so fiscally aware, shall we say. I've been on record in one of these meetings as saying that this stuff, my eyes just glaze out when we start talking about finances and the like. But I have to say that this new format makes it a bit more accessible for folk like me. So thanks for sharing, and hopefully I'll get up to speed at some point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. We're going to the next chunk here is the capital part, which is Simon Bell. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. So if I could start by just giving you an overview of the capital programme section of the new report, which provides a significant amount of information. And that's in a format that will allow members to view at a high level, and as we've said, you can drill down into the detail. Members will always also be aware that the programme continues to face ongoing pressures on affordability due to construction inflation and the cost of borrowing. Projects are being closely monitored to ensure that essential scope is aligned with affordability caps. So starting with the capital summary page, the dashboard, the bars, the green and black bars to the left of the page show the current year budget of £141 million with a projected spend of £116 million. And the red variance of £25 million reflects the reprofiling of projected spend for a number of projects, which are detailed in the covering report and also within the detail of this report. The speedometer at the top right, that shows current year spend of £15 million. And the pie chart below that shows the share of the current year budget allocation between the various work streams. The bar chart below that then details how the current year budget is funded. So moving to the next page, which is project progress. The projects are grouped in relation to their RIBA stages. So the large bars at the top of the page, groups 6 and 7 are projects that have been handed over and are in use. And down at the bottom, 0 and 1 are those projects are at a very early stage of development. The next page then takes the major projects and projects what the RIBA stages are anticipated to be over the next 5 years. That's shown in a table form at the top and then also a graph form below that. And then moving forward, we then get into the detail. So each of the work streams is noted. This is the learning estate. And the table gives you the information in terms of total budget allocation, total project spend to date through the forecast expenditure for the project, current year budget, current year spend, etc. And also includes the status of the project, its RIBA stage and a risk. And then, as is always the case, it goes on to provide narrative around about these projects. And then this is repeated for the different work streams, including East Ayrshire Roads Capital. So I don't propose to go through this in any great detail, but as usual, if I could just give you an update on a selection of projects. I'll just move back to the dashboard page first. So starting with completed projects, St Sophia's Primary School refurbishment was completed and handed over in June, and the pupils returned for the new term in August. This Scottish Government funded Pathfinder project is the first NFIT certified school in the United Kingdom and will provide invaluable knowledge to apply to future refurbishment projects. There's been a significant number of projects undertaken over the school summer break, and that includes roofing works at Dunlop, Logan and Drongan primary schools, internal and external works at the Supported Learning Centre at Onthank, upgrading works to Crosshouse Community Centre, external play areas at Willowbank, alterations at Bellsbank Primary School and accessibility works at Nether Robertland Primary School. In the moment, there's approximately £36 million of construction contracts on site. It includes the Palace Theatre and Grand Hall as part of Cultural Kilmarnock, where a contract was awarded for the project, which received £20 million of levelling up funding, and works commenced on the 4th of August. Work will continue on a phased basis over the next 2 years, with an initial focus on the refurbishment of the exterior of the building. The Galston Library and Office is well advanced, with the building wind and watertight, and internal fit-out works are ongoing. And the Kilmarnock multi-storey car park demolitions now largely complete, with final landscaping works being undertaken. Projects at a detailed design stage include Kilmores Primary School, where, as noted in the covering report, following a tendering exercise, a preferred bidder has now been identified to replace the existing dining hall and kitchen, and works are anticipated to start in October. At Stuart Academy, technical designs have now been completed and a tender has been prepared, which is anticipated to be issued later in October or early November. And with projects in the earlier stages of development, the Ayrshire Engineering Park and Ayrshire Manufacturing Investment Corridor as part of the Ayrshire Growth Deal, a preferred bidder has now been identified following tendering for the Phase 1 infrastructure works, and subject to joint committee approval, it's anticipated these works could commence early autumn. With the Doon Valley Community Campus, as we discussed earlier, proposals for the refurbishment and extension of the existing school are being developed and stakeholder engagements ongoing, and we expect the first phase of works to upgrade the leisure centre to start late this year, early next. So thanks, Chair. That's just a brief summary. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Simon. Councillor Cogley.
Yep, thanks, Simon, and thanks, Simon and Joe, for your visit to Galston Community Trust on Monday. Greatly appreciated, and it's fantastic to be at the end of one project and nearly at the end of the second project in Galston. So thanks very much, guys.
Any questions elected members in the room or online on any of the projects or the capital budget itself? Councillor Canning.
Thanks. Just a quick one. It was actually a question for later on around the Palace Theatre, but it might be more appropriate here actually. Just I was pleased to note that there's £12 million been local suppliers, supply chain. I don't know whether David could elaborate on that, just in terms of what's local, what actually.
Through you, Chair, if you don't, we'll maybe take it with the contracts report when we get it, and then the information members are focused on what we're looking at there, if that's okay.
Sure. Okay, no problem. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sangster.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Simon, are you able to just go into a wee bit more detail around the initial phase or works that have happened at Onthank Primary, Crosshouse Communications Centre and Willowbank around the additional supported learning? Just a wee bit more detail on what works have been done and what's actually going to be happening in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks through you, Chair. So on Thank, this is our second year of works that we've undertaken over the summer break, focusing in on the toilet provision for the supported learning centre. So last year we managed to create a new changing place and toilet facility within the school, and then this year we've expanded the toilet provision associated with the supported learning centre, and also upgraded and improved the external play area there. So now's the time we're going to go back to the school and engage again and see what other works we could start to phase in and undertake over the next summer break. At Crosshouse, there was works again that we undertook to provide space for ASN pupils. It was minimal works around about accessibility and improving finishes within the school, given the limited time over the summer break. But that's been received very positively. And again, we're going to look to see how we can build on that during the next term. And at Willowbank, a couple of things been happening. We undertook, with support of the Friends of Willowbank, funding works to the external areas, a first phase to put in some external play equipment, and then that'll be followed on with some further kind of improvements and landscaping works there. And we're also looking at a project to replace the existing garage, which is at the rear of the Willowbank School, with a modular or 2 modular classroom units. So that is close to being agreed and taken forward so that we can start getting that manufactured and then installed. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification and that detailed information. I think it's important, given the rise in pupils with additional support needs, that we're now looking at that and we're now able to provide good spaces. So well done, thank you.
I have Councillor Todd online and then Councillor Canning.
Thanks very much, Convener. I need a wee bit of advice. I've got a question on capital repayments and the rent we're paying. Is that applicable with this discussion we've just had? Will I wait till later on?
Through you, Chair, that's one I might pass to one of my finance colleagues.
Yeah, Joe can answer that if you've got the question, Councillor Todd.
No, right, thank you. It's just cost of living crisis, disastrous budget coming up our way from that big house in the Thames, and it's affected interest rates. And I just wondered, what impact has that been in our repayments, our capital programme, and also how much annually are we paying out for the 3 schools that were built under PFI? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So interest rates, according to our Treasury advisors, along with inflation, should peak later on this year and then begin to fall. So that's the first part. In terms of the volatility within that, Scottish Local Government operate a loans fund, which is almost like an internal bank where we provide advances to services that are undertaking capital borrowing. That loans fund is able to consolidate interest rates from 1970s, 1980s through to now. So it provides a loans fund advance rate, which is a stable rate to try and protect us from volatility in interest rates and the like. And in terms of the schools, then both in the PPP contract and the non-profit distributable model contract that exists, the interest rates that within them are predominantly fixed. We pay for 3 elements. We pay the borrowing costs, we pay the interest rates on the borrowing, and we also pay the facilities management costs within each of those contracts. The interest rate cost is a bit unusual in that it does fly in, but it flies in a different sort of model where there is hedging taking place within the provider that then passes it on to us. So it's a budget that we inflate each year. The index that's used in all contracts is a January index of RPIX, which is RPI with housing costs, that flies in at January each year. It's a budget which increases each year in terms of the budget overall, but we know that that as we get towards 2030 or 2048 now, then that should diminish. But that's some of the answers. We protect ourselves from the volatility. It's not to say that volatility does not exist, but between our Treasury advisors and having an internal loans fund, then it provides some surety and stability to us.
Thank you, Joe. Councillor Canning.
Thanks again, Simon. Just a quick one. Pleased to see Cawards is moving ahead. Obviously, pleased to see that Cabinet have approved some additional funding that was necessary. In terms of Stewarton, obviously disappointing to see the delay. Again, understand the reasons, but just mindful of the Persimmon application, which is potentially coming down the track. When's your best estimate in terms of when that will actually be available for use?
Thanks through you, Chair. So, as noted in the report, hopeful to get tenders out October, November time, and that would lead to a potential start on site Q1 of 26, so early 26, and it'll be around about a 12-month contract. So we're talking about early 27 for completion of the extension.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon, for that reply. And the question, Councillor Canning. You've left your mic on. Thank you. And we've got the next chunk of the East Ayrshire Performs is workforce, and it's divided as well. Workforce 1, recruitment absences, and then we'll take some questions. Thank you. Amanda.
Thanks, Chair, and morning, members. Just so, like my colleagues have said before, the workforce shows the council summaries, but also can be drilled down to look at individual services sections. So on the first slide, workforce staffing on the left-hand side shows the headcount and full-time equivalent at 2025, comparing it to the same at period 2024. Since last year, the headcount of the council overall has decreased by 349 employees and is down during the period of April to June. It decreased by 192 employees. Splitting that into temporary and permanent decreases, that's an overall decrease of 149 permanent employees and 43 temporary employees. On the right-hand side of this slide, the graph shows the details of the number of young people employed within the council, detailing apprentices and all other employees aged 30 and under. I would just note for members that the figures include temporary employees, but also that there has been a change. Previously, for young people, we had detailed those employees within the category age 16 to 24. This is now age 16 to 30. The reason for this change is to account for young people with disabilities or care experienced who can apply for apprenticeships up to age of 29. Just note that there's no age limit for internships. So overall, the number of young people working with the council at the 30th of June even, 25 was 961. 99 of these were apprentices. So in the next slide details our trainees. As you're aware, the Jobs and Training Fund was originally agreed at Cabinet for the period 22 to 25. This has now been further extended for another 3 years to 2028, and we've continued to have a focus on council apprenticeships, internships and pre-apprentice opportunities. The purpose of this is to continue to support and develop career pathways within the council for young people living within our communities. And the left-hand side of the slide shows the details of the number of jobs and training posts. It has decreased this quarter, which is not not a surprise given that the one programme came to an end at the end of March and we're now into the new programme, and there is a significant amount of recruitment underway. On the other side of this slide shows the positive destinations, again comparing 25-26 to 24-25. Within that significant recruitment that we've currently ongoing, we had the pilot summer school programme at Doon Academy this year, so there's now recruitment for those individuals successfully moving into apprenticeships within the council, and also we've got a new career pathway with the apprenticeships for social care, and there's 6 of those posts just been advertised. The next slide shows vacancies, and the vacancies are currently split into the number of frontline and non-frontline posts. The definition that's used for the frontline posts is, for example, teaching, early childhood posts, cleaning, catering, outdoor posts and social care. And non-frontline posts are classified as those posts that are in a support function or a management function. As Joe already mentioned, we are currently we have concluded a review of the workforce review group, and we've added in additional scrutiny levels, which are starting this month, and they're within services for like education, for education its own, and for other service groups, to give that scrutiny and agree about across the services what goes forward to the WRG and what can go forward straight away to adverts. This slide shows the leavers of the council. The number of leavers for this period was 182, which is 73 more than the previous quarter. The main reason for people leaving is resignations, and across the period, with education obviously having a significant number of turnover at this point in time, which is normal given the annual staffing exercise within classroom assistants and teachers. Moving on to absence, this shows that the absence rate for the period, there were 1,627 instances of absence, given a total of 20,164 work days lost. This is a decrease of 2,007 work days lost, and a decrease of equivalent to 0.19 per employee. This slide shows the duration at absences, and it shows that the short-term absence, which is classified as 1 day up to a month, there were 612 employees. Sorry, there were 1,924 employees absent, and then in the long term, there were 612 employees. In respect to the short-term absences compared to the same period last year, there was a decrease of 2,634 days, which is equivalent to 0.33 per employee. And for long-term absence, there was a slight increase of 626 days, which is an equivalent of 0.74 work days lost per employee. This screen shows the top 10 reasons for absence. We've got 20 categories in total at this point in time, but that's subject to review with the policy. And the reason we've stopped at 10 is you'll note that when you get to number 10, the numbers of days lost is very, very low. The top 5 reasons for both years, this year compared to last year, has remained the same, with the top 2 staying in the exact same position, with operations and recovery moving from 4th place to 3rd place, and stress, work-related, moving from 5th to 4th, and with stomach and abdominal dropping from 3rd to 5th. We'd also note that within this, the stress days has decreased in this period by 1,765, which is a 30%, just over 30% reduction. And this is due to the work that we've put when members agreed to the additional support put in by my team, which we talked about in detail on Monday, and the early intervention that's been put in place and is successfully working. And from the 1st of October, we will be rolling out early intervention for musculoskeletal as well. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Amanda. Have we any questions in the room or online? Councillor Kyle.
A quick question, Amanda. I forgot to ask you at the meeting earlier in the week. 23% over 45, so it's quite a high. Menopause, teachers, do you struggle at school? No, not you, Linda, but I know some of my friends, they thought they were into early dementia because they lost their words. Do we suffer a lot for that in the council?
Through you, Chair, yes, we do have we have that. So we'll have our menopause policy and we'll have our women health policy to support employees and to give guidance and training and support to managers for how to deal with situations with that. But yes, given the age group of our staff, then it can be prominent.
Thanks.
Councillor Todd online. I'm wondering, is this also about menopause, Councillor Todd? No.
Yeah, the male one, yeah. No, thanks very much. Thanks, Amanda. A couple of issues for me, and the stress part. Now, the wee bit of experience with this in my previous employment, and the stress part. Are employees quite open on the causes of stress? Do you find that a barrier that they won't talk about it? Because hopefully you can get things changed. If you can get the root cause, there's always a solution. And the second part is musculoskeletal. I know they will do, but just to reassure us all that all departments work really closely with you if we find the causes of those injuries and the time off. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Yep. And for the first question for stress, as you would imagine, that's on an individual basis, and we talked about that on Monday. So some employees are very willing from the outset to explain what the reasons are for their stress, and others, particularly if it's personal stress, sometimes have got more of the it's personal, so it's not really your business. But we try and we work with them on an individual basis to get to the root cause, to see what we can do to support to get folk back to work. And to be fair, the team led by Jane McKee has been working really hard on that, and we can see an improvement. And as that rolls out and more folk are aware of it and the supports that can be given as a result, it's hopefully that barrier will start to lower a bit. In relation to musculoskeletal, yes, they do. They work closely with the new support and attendance and work team, but also with our HR business partners and our health and safety team. So they do work closely with us, and we've been working closely with occupational health to bring in this mandatory early intervention and linking with our physio. So we're making it less of a voluntary physio, but more of a mandatory if there is a musculoskeletal issue.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Councillor Todd, for the question. I don't think there's any more questions in the room. I'll just close your wee section by thanking you very much for Monday. You and your managers attending and giving us some in-depth information on absence and how you're dealing with that and trying to get the absence figures down. It was really useful. Thank you, Amanda. And the last part of the East Ayrshire Performance Report is the digital section. It's back to Joe McLaughlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And this is a new section in the report that recognises the substantial work that's taking place across the council, in my service and across the council with digital. It also recognises the expectations of the Accounts Commission in terms of local authorities embracing digital technologies and using that to either redesign or reshape services and do so at lower cost. It's important to note that Amanda, Head of People and Culture, and myself are sitting with a live audit recommendation. It relates to a national study that was done a few months ago by Audit Scotland on workforce, and that part of the report was around digital and the link between workforce and digital. And our recommendation is to demonstrate digital use in the council, but also how that impacts on workforce, and we'll do that in the year to come. So again, we start off with a dashboard, and the dashboard for the first time for members displays those really top level major digital projects that are taking place across the council. I am the digital lead for colleagues and council management team, and I chair the council's digital management board. You've received reports previously that sets out the terms of reference and scope for that board. But it's a board that meets every 6 weeks or so, and it provides resource it provides support, guidance, and at the same time scrutiny to those projects. In the top left-hand corner, we can see a light blue bar, which is £2.412 million. That's the allocation, two allocations that the Cabinet gave to provide funding for a replacement to the Care at Home workforce team through Total Mobile, and another £900,000 of an allocation provided to support technology-enabled care. And what we know from that in the line below is that that first project, the Total Mobile Care at Home workforce project, will produce a cost saving of just under £3 million. Won't be a saving, it'll be cost avoidance. It will reduce costs for Eric and the team in that home care block, in that community care block we saw earlier, in terms of managing of staff and deploying of staff too. The top right shows the projects that are in play, and they range from work that Amanda and I are doing with colleagues in terms of website accessibility through Total Mobile, and also touching on Office 365. The bottom on the right-hand side shows the two projects that are producing savings, and where those savings are scheduled to come in to the service, and that's a chart that we keep a close eye on, because we're trying to prevent drag or slippage on those programmes. So those are the big ones that we're dealing with through the Digital Management Board, but it's not the only projects we have. We have a list of ongoing projects taking place. They range from College and Housing, grateful to them for piloting the video conferencing facility. Just as you have digital elected member surgeries, we also have a facility now that's operational where anyone who wants to interact with, say, housing or with council tax can do so by booking an appointment through either a device that enables them to be at home, but still deal with that interactive contact that takes place. A range of projects here, we can talk more about them as we go through the other periods throughout the year. And within this group, there's maybe 2 or 3 tests of change, which we're hoping will work, but other ones in the grouping are working well, and a list of the recently completed projects are there for you as well. And these are producing efficiencies within services. And an important part of the work of the Digital Management Board and of Colin Hastings, who is the Assistant Director of Finance, is that Colin will begin to monetize this and say, okay, you made a saving, you made an efficiency. Here is the monetary value of that efficiency, so that as you begin to see the budget cuts package come forward, you'll better understand how they link back to digital projects. But just to give an overview of just some of the work that's taken place, I've spoken about Care at Home. It's that £1.5 million that Cabinet gave in September last year. We always thought that the move from CM2000 to Total Mobile with a transition date, a changeover date of May 2025 was really ambitious. I would say it was nervously ambitious, if I'm honest, but we achieved it through the work of colleagues in health and social care, colleagues in ICT and digital, and supported by the business innovation team. So that's made a real difference. And as I said earlier, and it's important to note, the savings that are due to be made are on track to do so. Microsoft 365, we've got what we're seeing today has been done through our ability to use Power BI and other tiles and uses within 365. The 365 journey is almost ended. We are looking at some other projects, other applications that will allow sharing of data, and that's progressing well and should be available in the coming months. And also corporate telephony, an area that causes elected members great angst is around people's ability to call the council and get a voice at the end of the phone. This is a project that I'm leading. It's incredibly complex. We have changed the council's telephony functionality to make sure that it's ready for this. We've got 1 or 2 wee tweaks to do in terms of specific technical applications for payments, but more than that, we've also got data in terms of who takes calls, how many of those 300,000 calls that come in each year, where they hit, are they answered first time? Are they answered to resolution? And the view of this is that as we progress this application or this project, the change here will be around a centralised telephony arrangement where either that's at home or it's in a location within the council that enables not just first time resolution, but it allows linkages between the reason someone's phoning and whether or not we can offer some further service or some further advice. So that's digital. It's a new part to it. You'll learn more about it and hear more about it as we go through the year. I'm pleased that as a council we approved or you approved our digital strategy in late 2022. It's that strategy that's allowed us to take this forward. So as others are trying to embrace the expectations of the Accounts Commission, we are doing particularly well in this, but it's a huge resource. It goes back to that revenue bit in finance and digital being underspent. It is underspent because I need to reshape the vacancies to provide less into finance and more into the ICT digital side, recognising the implications of Office 365, but also the expectations of you in terms of trying to get as much efficiency out so that we don't impact on frontline services. Chair, that's an overview of the digital side. I'm conscious of the time and of the length of time this has taken. The recommendations for Cabinet are for you today are at paragraph 7. Recommendations for Cabinet are shown in page 76. The recommendation for you to note the report is at paragraph is on page 77. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe on the digital chunk of East Ayrshire performance? Councillor Todd online.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Joe. I've got some concerns about this whole digital thing, and I know that's the way forward. You're going to save money. You're going to get quicker responses to certain sectors of our communities. The data protection part really worries me, because anybody, and I haven't got one, but anybody who's got one of these talking speakers listens to what you say. And I've just got this thing in the back of my head, and I hope I'm talking rubbish. I've just got this thing in the back of my head. Who's listening to what I'm saying? It's not a computer. So there will be somebody, a human being, can access my house. You get it with speaking televisions when you talk to televisions. I haven't got one of them either. So again, I'm a Luddite, yeah, I get it. But I would just like some comfort from our IT guys who are brilliant, that data protection is very important. And if we have any digital stuff in workplaces, that our workers are protected. That anything they say in there is just subject to their decisions. And we're not turning into Big Brother. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So there's a number of things in that around devices and technology and the like. I suppose I would give you the assurance that in terms of the progression of digital technologies and the extension of Office 365, we have taken an approach where there has been pace at specific intervals, but there's been a stop and a reflection. And I am eternally grateful to the Information Governance Manager, because we have over the last year or so swamped Robert and his small team with really complex data protection DPIAs in terms of Office 365. In terms of, you're absolutely right, safeguarding data when things move on to a cloud. So that's why in terms of the next phase, which is the application called OneDrive, that allows a sharing of data to take place, that we are taking that not at a slow pace, but at a pace where we can reassure Robert, because Robert will be the person that will hold us to account. But at the same time, we can also do so in a way that we can put in the necessary controls in place. And it's why 365 is taking longer than you hear about taking place in other places. It's because of the safeguards we're trying to build in. On some other points, just in 2022, we called our digital strategy to 2027 and beyond technology is moving at such fast pace that Paul Toland is currently reviewing our digital strategy. It won't make it to 2027. So the point you make is a relevant point. It's a lesson to us, but please be assured that in terms of the work we're doing to try and safeguard the council and its employees, we're doing that in an approach that doesn't just involve the ICT experts. We're branching out and seeking relevant support from colleagues that know a great deal more in terms of data management.
Thank you, Councillor Todd, for the question and Joe for the answer. As Joe informed us previously, this has already been through Cabinet, and there was loads of recommendations for Cabinet yesterday. For us, we're at page 77, and there's just one simple recommendation that members note the content of this report. Okay, members, thank you. We're moving on to the next item on the agenda. It's item 6, complaints annual report 24-25. Report by the head of corporate support. We've got June McIntyre, senior manager, partnerships and performance. Thank you, June.
Thank you, Chair. A slightly more concise report, this one, so I'll try to be brief, colleagues. We're required by the Scottish Public Services Ombudsman to report annually on our complaints handling procedure. Like all authorities across Scotland, we follow the model complaints handling procedure that is prescribed by the SPSO, which is basically a two-stage internal complaints procedure. We have stage 1, where we're expected to, or we aim to respond to complaints within 5 working days. And we have stage 2 and escalated complaints, which require more investigation, typically led by heads of service, and we aim to complete these within 20 working days. As part of the performance framework set in place by the SPSO, we're required to report on the number of complaints that are dealt with under the CHP each year, and also the extent to which we're managing to meet those 5 and 20-day timescales. This year, for the first time, we have also created a Power BI dashboard to provide the historic time series data around complaints. It's currently available on the Council's intranet. After this meeting, we'll also make it live on the internet and update the complaints annual report. So that's allowed us to produce a more concise written report, and the time series data is available online for people to look back over the last 5 years if they'd like to drill down more on the historic data. For 24-25, we received a total of 133 complaints that were dealt formally through the CHP, which is broadly in line with 136 that were received in the previous year. In terms of the target timescales, again, performance broadly in line with previous. We had a slight decrease in performance in terms of the percentage of complaints that were responded at stage 1 within the target 5 working days, but improving performance around stage 2 and escalated complaints, where we're aiming to conclude the investigation within 20 working days. For myself, I think the most important indicator for us is around the escalation of our complaints to the SPSO. If people have concluded the 2 stages of the internal complaints procedure, they have the right to ask the SPSO to review the Council's handling of their complaint and the outcome of that decision. In 2024-25, we had 29 complaints that were escalated to the SPSO, and none of those were overturned, which gives us some comfort that the SPSO was happy with the compliance with the CHP within the Council and the way that we're implying and responding to complainants. We do have a continuous improvement programme where we seek to support services to meet the complaints requirements and to respond to any national changes that are prescribed by the SPSO. And the one thing that I'd like to draw your attention to in terms of 24-25 was the introduction of some new child-friendly complaints handling principles and guidance. This was part of the implementation of the UNCRC. And as you'd expect, the greatest implications across the Council services were for education complaints. So now all complaints that are dealt with by the Education Service require to go through some additional steps just to ensure that we're complying with the UNCRC recommendations, which is proper. The implementation of it has taken a significant amount of demand because we have to make sure that all staff across our educational establishments are aware of these additional requirements and that they're being applied consistently across the piece. So that's been one of the challenges I think that we've been experienced in relation to complaints handling over the previous year. That's the report. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, June, for presenting that report. Do we have any questions, please, in the room or online? Councillor Canning.
Just a quick comment. I mean, I think obviously we don't want any complaints and we'll never rest on our laurels, but I think that level of complaints, given the size of the organisation and the number of services that are provided, I think is a testament to the staff that we've got. So, I mean, that's pleasing. And I think, to me, what's also notable is, given the cuts that we're making, complaints have actually come down, which I think is excellent as well. So we don't want any, but I think we're doing okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Canning. I think it's useful as well that you've dropped a few case studies into the report to let us see the kinds of different things that people are complaining about. Thank you very much for presenting your report. I don't see any other questions. You're getting off light. Thank you, June. We'll see you again at the next one. Elected members, we're looking at the recommendations on page 132, paragraph 2.
Yep.
And it's consider the contents of the report, not the report. Happy with that, members? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7 in the agenda, which is concluded property transactions, 1st of July to 30th of June. And we go to David Mitchell, please.
Thanks, Chair. Members, I'll not keep you. Members are familiar with this. It's one of a suite of reports we bring in terms of just the general commitment to transparency and accountability in bringing into the public domain detail of the exercise of delegated powers. Here it relates to disposals and acquisition of property, where the general arrangement, just to give you assurance, is basically Joe and myself required to sign off and agree with the client service on any acquisition or disposal. I think it's up to £1 million value. Anything above that requires a cabinet decision. So the purpose of this report is to bring into the public spotlight those decisions that are taken, not behind closed doors, not in shadows, but under delegated authority, and to properly put them on the record. Obviously, the buildings and land we buy and sell reflect the width of the council services and the varying and changing needs of the council. You have it split into two. In Appendix 1, you have general services, a very few acquisitions, and you have some disposals, mostly where we end up owning things that are of no requirement to us, but could be of some use or benefit to someone else, and most of them are negotiated, although some of larger size, you'll see at the bottom of page 151, are marketed where there's a potential higher value. In terms of acquisitions, what you do see is a very clear reflection of the change of direction in our policy as housing authority. In the past, there was very few acquisitions, but you've got pages there, literally. And this is in furtherance of the revised housing approach, which was to either, if you've got 4 in the block, it was to either divest ourselves if we've got 1, get rid of any minority ownership, and to consolidate where we maybe had 2 or 3 and seek to acquire full ownership of buildings, which makes it a lot easier to manage repairs, etc., if you don't need anyone else's agreement or indeed financial contribution from other private owners. So been very successful in that, in terms of buying these back and making them into, or turning them into, the council stock. There's another offshoot of that. The positive is that colleagues advised me that last month alone we recovered £35,000 in income to the council from those sales, because in occasions, in different circumstances, where there's a debt to the council tax is the obvious one, but it might be recovery of care costs. So if we have a standard security or a charging order, that doesn't recover any income unless there's a sale and a transfer of title. So one of the indirect benefits of these is any properties we're buying back, we're actually able to capture any debts due to the council. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to maintain the stock at a certain level and quality, but the indirect benefit is £35,000 just last month in a month, which is kind of typical just now. So it's actually helping us to catch a lot of historical debt that is secured but wouldn't be recovered if buildings didn't get bought and sold. So there's a lot of detail in there. The other impact of that volume of transactions is we're having to recruit a second paralegal for a 2-year temporary basis to get us through this continuing bulge because of the absolute pressures it's putting on a very small conveyancing team. But it does reflect, as I say, a positive approach on behalf of the housing service, and we're quite happy to support that. If there's any other questions about any other specific entries, I'm happy to either take it away and try and get an answer, or answer it here if I can, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Members, I'm not going to take questions on this one. There's loads of different property transactions have happened. There's plenty of detail there. Can I ask retired members? Sorry, can I ask elected members if you have any questions on any of the specific transactions? Please get in touch with David Mitchell, and he'll give you whatever information you're needing. Okay, thank you, members. I'm going to move on to item 8 in the agenda, the last one, which is also back to David Mitchell, and it's about awarding of contracts.
Thanks, Chair. Members, everything I said before in the general context applies to this one. It's part of the standard suite, is to let you, the members and the public, see who we do business with and how we do business, not just the contractors we award to, but those who were also able and invited and did bid, and also to let people see the basis in which contracts were awarded and the value of the unsuccessful bids, so that people can satisfy themselves we're doing things in an appropriate manner. I won't pick them all or any out, other than Councillor Cannon referred earlier to the very last one there, the rather sizeable one that's just been awarded, obviously, to McLaughlin and Harvey for Cultural Kilmarnock, etc. Right at the very bottom of page 162. Obviously, the auditor, and you brought out that trained eye, because I can barely read the small print, Councillor Cannon, but towards the bottom of that large community benefit paragraph under that one, you'll see reference to 12 million of the overall value of the contract by agreement being directed to local spend. The question that was posed, and it does highlight every day's a school day, because context is everything. We do bring the, just to digress a moment, as members will recall, we do also bring to GNS on an annual basis the annual report on performance of the council as a procuring authority against the previous year's action plan. So we take the action plan to Cabinet at the beginning of each financial year, and we bring a mid-term report to GNS on performance against the previous year. That one's been held up because members will recall what we provide in there is information around that spend, and we define local spend there as either businesses within Ayrshire or an East Ayrshire postcode. But what we've elicited in the course of this morning, and hence my comment, every day's a school day, and I'm now trying to do it from memory to see if I've learnt my homework, because we've been here long enough, I've run out of charge of my laptop. But bottom line is, for this one, you define local in accordance with the context of each contract for the purposes of capturing the benefits. Long story short, this one's under the SCAPE framework, and local for the context of this one is defined within a radius of 20 miles. So businesses within that radius would be defined as local. So 12 million of the, and I can't read the big figure, the 26 million of the overall contract value, just under half will be directed to businesses within that 20-mile radius. So we got there in the end. Thank you, Councillor Cannon, for your question. If there's any other questions, any other entries, happy again to take them, but hopefully it's all fairly self-explanatory. Leave it at that, Chair.
I'll just take the one, Councillor Lennox.
Thanks for the, I don't want to lengthen the winter. I know it's been a long meeting, Chair. Just a couple of points I wanted to make, and maybe a question for David, if there's a quick answer. But first of all, in respect to the tender for Logan Primary School roof, had the opportunity, along with the Deputy Chief Executive, to go and have a look up on that roof when the scaffolding was up, and the contractors have made a really good job. But as with all types of work like this, when they were up there, there was work identified, additional work identified, which was not within the scope of the contract, but fair to say that the contractors dealt with that within the price that they quoted, so well done to them. It also identified other more extensive works that would require to be done in the future. So look forward to that maybe happening maybe during the summer holidays next year or that. If there's a quick question, David, in page 151, it mentions the word excambion under purchase price. I just wondered if you had a quick explanation for that, please.
Basically, an excambion is a swap of title. So I might buy your house and I might pay you the value of the house, or I might swap you your house for my house, or property for property. Where it's property for property, that's an excambion. So hopefully that's both clear and short enough. But it's a swap rather than payment of cash.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for both those reports and elected members. For us, it's the concluded property transactions is on page 48, and paragraph 2 is the recommendations, just to note the contents of the report. And similar with item 8 in the agenda, award on the contracts for that period is page 158, and again it's paragraph 2, noting the content of the report. If anyone's out there have questions or needs some more detail, I'm sure David Mitchell will be happy to supply you with that detail if you send him an email. Happy with the contents of the report and noting. Thank you, elected members. That concludes our meeting today. We can end the recording, and thank you for your attendance.
Thanks, Chair.